9 minutes to 9. What if we could match up the DNA of children with their health during the course of their lives? Well, it seems we can. We have managed to do that. We being the Wellcome Sanger Institute. The results are going to be available to researchers everywhere. Let us talk to Dr. Hilary Martin, Group Leader in Human Genetics at the Wellcome Sanger Institute. Morning to you.
Good morning.
How many children involved and what have you done?
So we've sequenced the DNA of about 25,000 children and about 12,000 of their parents. And these are from 3 British birth cohorts called Children of the 90s, or ALSPAC, Children of the New Century, otherwise known as the Millennium Cohort Study, and Born in Bradford. And these are already fantastic resources that have enabled research into the causes of all sorts of traits, neurodevelopmental traits, anthropometric traits, and this will take us one step further in understanding the effect of rare DNA changes that have large effect on these traits and how those vary over time.
So what are you going to do then over time? How are you going to monitor them? How closely?
So we'll be making use of measurements that these cohorts have already collected all the way through from birth to early to adolescence or early adulthood through surveys or clinic measures. And we'll basically use statistical approaches, statistical techniques to link the genetic variation that we find through the sequence data with these traits. And
right. Sorry to interrupt, but just to be clear, so you've already done the work you need to do in a sense. Are you going to follow them into adulthood and through adulthood to death or not?
So we don't run the cohorts. We've generated the data and we collaborate closely with the groups that do run those cohorts in Bristol, UCL and Bradford. And I think depending on the funding, they'd very much like to continue collecting data on the participants.
Because that would be the fascinating thing, wouldn't it? I mean, you say you can use statistical techniques, but the fascinating thing would be to see the correlation, at least, if not the causation, between the various genetic things that you find, that you know are there from the DNA, and what happens to people.
Absolutely, and we can certainly do that with traits and diseases that have already been measured up to now, when the children are kind of between their mid-teens and mid-30s, depending on the cohort. And actually, one of the unique features of these data sets is because they have data on the parents, we can use some clever methods to really prove that genetic variants are causal rather than just correlated with phenotypes in a kind of clever way.
You think obviously of disease. Are we thinking also of personality, or is that too deep a dive or too tricky a thing to get into?
Well, it's personality traits are kind of fun traits that have been measured on the participants in at least some of these cohorts. And in addition to being fun, they are also important because they have links with mental health and educational attainment. And we know they have a partial genetic basis. The field has studied the effect of common genetic variants on these personality traits. We don't yet know the extent to which the rare genetic variants that we'll be studying with these new data impact those traits, but it would be fun to look.
Dr. Hilary Martin, Group Leader in Human Genetics at the Wellcome Sanger Institute. Thank you.